The text from my neighbor arrived while I was in a client meeting. 3 photos, each more devastating than the last. My workshop gone. Nothing but splintered wood and twisted metal where my sanctuary had stood 4 hours earlier. Call me ASAP, Jim had written. Your brother-in-law did this. I have video. My hands shook as I excused myself from the conference room. That workshop wasn't just a building. It was the last thing my father and I built together before cancer took him. Every joint, every nail, every carefully measured cut held our final conversations. I called my wife Sarah first. She answered on the second ring, already crying. Tom, I'm so sorry. Brad just told me. He said he was doing us a favor, that you spend too much time out there. He demolished my workshop. He hired a crew. Said real men don't need she sheds to hide from their families. Tom, I tried to stop him but he said. Where is he now? At his house. He's having a barbecue to celebrate liberating you. Tom, I'm so. I hung up. Not on her, but on the situation. Brad had always been a problem. Sarah's older brother, the kind of man who measured masculinity by truck size and called therapy feelings hour. He'd mocked my workshop from day one, called it my fancy hiding spot and my princess palace. But to destroy it, I drove home, forcing myself to stay under the speed limit. Jim met me in my driveway with his laptop. I'm sorry, Tom. I saw the crew arrive around noon. Tried to tell them to stop, but they had work orders. Said the property owner authorized it. Show me the video. Jim's security camera had caught everything. Brad arriving in his lifted F-350, pointing at my workshop, signing papers. The excavator rolling in. The first bite of the claw through the roof my father had shingled, joking about teaching me to lay them straight, so the rain runs off, not in. 20 minutes. That's all it took to erase 18 months of Thursday evenings and weekend mornings. Of Dad teaching me Japanese joinery despite chemo weak in hands. Of him carving our initials in the corner beam the week before he couldn't hold tools anymore. Tom. Jim looked worried. You okay? I need to make some calls. The first was to my attorney, David Park. We'd been friends since college, and he knew the workshop's history. Brad did what? David's voice went sharp. Please tell me you have documentation that it was on your property. Every permit. Every survey marker. Every property line document. And Brad authorized the demolition. Jim has video. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't confront Brad. Don't post anything online. Document everything. The second call was to Brad's demolition company. They were surprisingly cooperative, once I explained the situation. Sir, we had a signed authorization from Brad Fuller. He showed ID, said he owned the property. Did he pay? Cash. $3,500 for rush job. I need copies of everything. The contract, his signature, any permits he claimed to have. Our office can email those within the hour. Sir, if we demolished the wrong property. You demolished the right building. The wrong person authorized it. Send everything to this email address. I walked to where my workshop had stood. The concrete foundation Dad and I had poured was cracked, broken by heavy machinery. The wood we'd carefully selected, dried and cut was kindling. The tools, God, the tools. Dad's 1960s craftsman table saw. His hand planes, some from his father. Gone. Sarah arrived as I was photographing the debris. She looked destroyed. Tom, I had no idea he was planning this. He showed up this morning talking about family unity and how you isolate yourself. It's not your fault. I should have warned you how he was talking at dinner last week. About how men shouldn't need separate spaces from their families. How his ex-wife's she-shed obsession ruined his marriage. This isn't about his ex-wife or toxic masculinity. This is about control. David arrived with a grim expression. I've reviewed the property documents you sent. The workshop was 100% on your land, properly permitted, legally built. Brad had zero authority to touch it. So we can sue. Sue. Tom, this is criminal destruction of property. Fraud. Possibly identity theft if he claimed to own the land. We're talking felony charges. My phone buzzed. The demolition company's documents. David reviewed them, his expression darkening. He signed as property owner. That's fraud. He also claimed there were no permits needed because it was a hazardous structure. That's filing a false report. What's the next step? Police report. Then we calculate damages. What was the replacement value? I'd never thought about it in those terms. The structure itself. Maybe $30,000 in materials. But the tools. Make a list. Every item. Get appraisals for the vintage tools. David, some of those tools were my grandfather's. My dad restored them. How do you appraise that? Carefully. Thoroughly. And expensively. The police arrived within an hour. Officer Martinez took the report while Officer Chin interviewed Jim about the video. Their expressions grew increasingly serious as the story unfolded. Mr. Fuller never claimed to own this property. Martinez asked. He's my brother-in-law. He knew exactly whose property it was. Called it my she-shed constantly. She-shed. His term for any space where men pursue hobbies without their families present. He thinks it's emasculating. Martinez exchanged glances with Chin. Sir, we've had issues with Mr. Fuller before. Bar fights, mostly. This escalation is concerning. They left to interview Brad. I spent the time making my list. Dad's table saw $3,000 for a restored vintage model. His hand planes. $500 each, 6 total. The Japanese chisels he'd bought specifically for a project. $2,000. But how do you price his handwriting on the drawer labels? His pencil marks on the wood showing where to cut. The sawdust that probably still held his DNA. Sarah's phone rang. Brad. Put it on speaker, I said. Arrested me. At my own barbecue. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Brad, you destroyed. I improved your marriage. Tom spends more time in that shed than with you. I did you a favor. You committed a crime, I said calmly. Tom. You ungrateful. I was helping. Real men don't need hideaways. They face their problems. Like you faced your divorce. By blaming your ex-wife she-shed instead of your drinking. That's different. Is it? You destroyed the last thing my father and I built together because you can't stand the idea of men having healthy hobbies. It's just a building. It was my father's legacy. And you turned it into splinters because of your toxic ideas about masculinity. He hung up. The criminal case moved quickly. Brad's lawyer tried to argue it was a family dispute, a misunderstanding. But the video, the fraudulent documents, and Brad's own social media post celebrating the demolition painted a clear picture. His Facebook post from that afternoon. Freed my brother-in-law from his she-shed prison. Real men don't hide. They engage. Hashtag no Mormon caves. Hashtag family first. The comments were brutal. Friends who knew about my father, about the workshop's history, tore into Brad. But he doubled down, posting photos of the demolition with captions like sometimes you have to destroy to rebuild. And tough love works. The civil lawsuit was where things got expensive for Brad. David was methodical, thorough, and ruthless. Structure replacement, $35,000. Vintage tool collection, $45,000. Custom wood inventory, $15,000. Emotional distress, $50,000. Punitive damages, $100,000. He'll never pay that, Sarah worried. He'll pay what he can, David assured her. Wage garnishment, asset seizure. And his homeowner's insurance is already denying coverage since he committed fraud. Brad's bravado crumbled when he realized the financial reality. His house, his truck, his boat, all assets that could be seized. His business, already struggling, couldn't survive the legal bills and reputation damage. This is insane, he screamed at the mediation. It's just a fucking shed. No, I said quietly. It was the place my father taught me patience. Where he showed me that creating something with your hands was the ultimate expression of masculinity. where he spent his last good days passing on skills his father taught him. Spare me the sentiment. Every surface in that shop held our fingerprints. Every tool had a story. The workbench had pencil marks from 3 generations of craftsmen. You destroyed a museum of family history because you couldn't stand that I had something sacred that didn't involve you. The mediator suggested a settlement. Brad's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, probably explaining that criminal conviction plus a massive civil judgment would destroy him. Brad looked at me with genuine confusion. It's just wooden tools. Why does it matter so much? That's exactly why you'll never understand. The settlement was $150,000. Brad had to sell his house to pay it. His wife left him. Apparently, destroying my workshop was the final straw in a pattern of controlling behavior. His business folded within 6 months. I used part of the money to build a new workshop. Bigger, better equipped. But it's not the same. The wood doesn't have Dad's pencil marks. The tools are new, without his modifications. The walls don't hold the echo of his laugh when I finally got a dovetail joint right. Sarah helped me build it. We spent our weekends cutting, measuring, raising walls. She learned to use the tools, understood why I needed this space. Not to hide from family, but to connect with it. To honor it. I'm sorry my brother never understood, she said one evening, running her hand over a perfectly smooth table surface we'd just finished. He thought destroying my space would bring me closer to family. He never realized that space was where I felt closest to the most important family member I ever had. We mounted a photo inside the new workshop. Dad and me, covered in sawdust, grinning beside a half-finished wall. Below it, a plaque. Built by Robert and Thomas Mitchell. Destroyed by ignorance. Rebuilt with love. Brad sent a letter last month. Not an apology, exactly. More an explanation of how unfair life had been to him. How the divorce, the bankruptcy, the criminal record had ruined everything. How he was living in a studio apartment, working minimum wage. I didn't respond. But I did spend that evening in my workshop, teaching Sarah's nephew how to use a hand plane. He's 10, eager, careful with the tools. He reminds me of myself at that age, watching Dad work, absorbing lessons about patience and precision. Why do you call it a workshop instead of a man cave? He asked. Because real men don't need caves. They need spaces to create, to build, to pass on knowledge. Hiding implies shame. This is about pride. Uncle Brad called it your she-shed. Uncle Brad never built anything worth preserving. That's why he couldn't understand why destroying something matters. The boy nodded solemnly and went back to planing, each stroke careful and considered. Another generation learning that masculinity isn't about destruction or dominance. It's about creation, patience, and the humble pride of work done well. Brad thought he was freeing me from a prison. He never understood it was a classroom, a temple, a time machine. Every cut connected me to the past. Every project prepared me for the future. He took that away with a bulldozer and a toxic philosophy. But here's what Brad never learned. You can destroy a building. You can scatter tools. You can break concrete. You can't demolish memories. You can't bulldoze knowledge. You can't wreck the lessons a father passes to his son. Those are built on stronger foundations than even the best workshop can provide. And no amount of toxic masculinity can tear that down. If you enjoyed the story and want to hear more just like it, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts and subscribe for more stories. Your support helps these stories reach more people, and trust me, the next one, it's even wilder.